Okay, welcome back to Secrets of Roll Mangging for our Call of Cthulhu campaign, Masks of Nyarlathotep. And so yeah, this session was a lot of fun, as you well heard. I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out so far. I think we're running a very unique campaign of masks. I think no matter every time anybody runs Masks of Nyarlathotep, it's never going to be the same. But I don't know if anybody's gone in the direction that I'm going, and I like that. So let's see here. What were the major events here? Well, I think Tufik being melted was probably the major point. Everything else was pretty much by the book for the most part. Let me try and recap the events here so we can go through. Okay, them going back to the Penhew Foundation, that was just a failure. Gavigan had, he had contacted Nyarlathotep by that point, so he knew he wasn't supposed to harm Reginald, but that didn't mean he needed to be real forthcoming with him either, especially with the dumbass wanting to play a card game. Like, that was just... It should have just blasted him right there, but okay. The Blue Pyramid. Right, the Blue Pyramid. That, that club, I think we've discussed this a number of times, but that club really serves one purpose, and that is to get the group in contact with Yalisha, who's one of the belly dancers. One of the of course, the belly dancer that Charlie spoke to. And it's kind of interesting because the way it's presented in the book is they're supposed to be asking questions. Like, that's the only way this works, is if the group goes around the club asking questions, either to the owner or some of the girls or something. They didn't do that at all. And they got in trouble pretty quickly, and they just... So, like, Charlie had his golden opportunity, but all he said was, I'm looking for some fun. And that's not going to get her speaking about the Brotherhood, So, it just... Well, like, it's like, at this point in the campaign, you gotta assume the investigators are going to be very paranoid about who they talk to. I guess. They're showing off the scepter like it's no big deal. Here's a scepter, it's got an inverted icon, and look at it. They're just showing it off to everybody. So I guess they're not paranoid about that. But they are paranoid about who they talk to about their investigation, I guess. And so, yeah, I imagine it's kind of unlikely that Yalisha would talk to them about it. But, of course, she's supposed to tell them that she knows some information and meet her at midnight down the street. And then if they meet her, she tells them that once a month, this truck comes up to the club. About two dozen customers climb in, led by a man named Tufik, and they go somewhere out of London. And then the group is supposed to stake out the club, wait for this to happen, and then once it does happen, they follow the truck out of London, and they go to Gavigan's estate. But obviously that didn't happen because they just went with the scepter for some reason, trying to get what it's worth. Like, I would just love to know, like, what they're thinking, like, their preferred outcome with this scepter thing going. Like, what was Charlie's preferred outcome? Like, the guy would see the scepter and be like, huh, this is connected to the Brotherhood of the Black Pharaoh. I can tell you all about him. Like, that's not likely to happen in this world. Like, Abdul Nawisha, who is the owner, he knows about the cult. Because, members of the cult frequent his club. He's not a cultist himself, though, although I know they assumed that. He's not a cultist himself. He knows about the cult, and so he knew that this scepter was related to the cult. You got these bungling investigators that are asking about it. He probably knows Gavigan would be interested in this. Maybe pay him some money for it. You never know. So that's why he wanted the scepter, and he assumed he could just rip off this dumb American guy. But he didn't assume that a dumb American guy would be packing a Magnum or something like that, which of course he was. So, yeah. And so then he thought, well, I'll just send some boys out there and just jump them. But I guess he also, again, didn't assume that the dumb American would shoot a London resident in the middle of the street. Which he did. Very interesting. Okay, so yes. Then they broke into the Penhew Foundation. That was just hilarious. That's like, man, could a heist go any worse than that? You're trying to break into this very secure location and not a single person in your group knows how to pick locks. Like, it's just, how well do you think it's going to go, right? And so sure enough, they ended up smashing through the door, made beautifully by Ed's complete lack of understanding of how to successfully use a spell. Like, when he said, I want him to smash his head through the door, I was like, what the? You have the... Like, could you imagine, like, the Jedi mind trick, like Obi-Wan Kenobi in New Hope or something, he's like, these aren't the droids you're looking for. Instead of saying that, he's just like, shoot yourself in the face. Like, that's basically what happened. Like, I don't think he understands the power behind mind control. It's not just smash your face in for, like, 3 damage. Like, you... like, I think it's so dumb and yet so hilarious that I gave this mind control ability to probably the worst person on the team to have it. Any other player would have done much better with it, but that's how the cookie crumbles. Because that spell, I don't think... No, I'm almost certain there's no scroll in the campaign itself that would let you learn. I'd have to put that in. And so, man, that's just funny. I hope, you know, if he ever dies... Yeah, that's actually what I'm going to do. If he ever dies... When he dies... I'm going to have Golk just, like, come out of nowhere or something and just, like, pluck his eye out, the magic eye, and go to Reginald or something and, like, hey, I could give you this eye if you want. Painless. Just pop it right in there. We'll see if Reginald goes for it. Or, you know, another character. You know, when Skulk actually joins the group properly or something. You never know. But yeah, that's too damn funny. Okay, so, yeah, they broke into the Penhew Foundation successfully, and they did successfully get down into the secret room. Now, this room definitely contained, well, they got most of the useful stuff. They did not raid the bookshelf hard enough, I don't think. I was kind of surprised by Reginald's lack of just grabbing everything. That's really what I expected. I would have allowed it. Like, I don't care. We're not getting that specific about how much you can carry. If you want to grab everything and throw it in your bag, go ahead. You did not, though. So they did grab all the books. All the important books. I'm not sure if they grabbed all the scrolls. I'm probably going to need to check on that if they ever start reading the scrolls. 10 out of the 15 are pretty much useless. Like, basically, it just costs you sanity. They're just like poems to praise Nyarlathotep. That's it. 5 of them, however, 2 of them being in hieroglyphics and 3 of them in Arabic, 5 of them contain spells. One of them... Okay, I'll just list them here. One of them is Summon Biaki, which is basically a winged creature. Generally used for transportation, not for combat. Summon Hunting Horror of Nyarlathotep. Those are used for combat. Those are very deadly. If the group somehow, like, if they grabbed one of the hieroglyphic spell, I'll make it the Hunting Horror one, because that sounds hilarious. If they can summon a Hunting Horror, man, oh man, that's crazy. They can just call down death on anybody they want. Bind Dimensional Shambler, which is what they need the silver daggers for. I know they think the silver daggers are like empowered with like a fire enchantment or some shit like that, but they're only used for summoning dimensional shamblers. And so it's going to be tricky for, well, if they grabbed an Arabic one or multiple Arabic ones, it'll probably be the bidimensional shamblers, and the spell itself will mention the need for the daggers. None of them can read Arabic, though, so it's kind of a moot point. Or hieroglyphics, for that matter. Well, actually, no. Maximilian can read hieroglyphics. The Dread Curse of Azathoth, which drains power, I believe, permanently. And Send Dreams, which they need, like, a special copper bowl, which Gavigan does not own. You know who owned one? Makunga. They didn't get that bowl, though, nor would they have kept it, I imagine. So, yeah, they need a special bowl for it, and if they have it, and they cast the spell, they can send dreams to anybody they want. And that's the spell that Makunga used way back when to give them those nightmares and stuff. It's also the reason that Gavigan has not given them any nightmares. Because he does not have this bowl. I don't know why he doesn't have the bowl. Just, you're rich, man. Get a damn bowl. Okay, so that was all the books and whatnot. The other thing is, well, they got the daggers. The small stone jar of the silvery powder that Sancho grabbed. If they ever do inspect this, and I imagine they will. I don't know if they keep track of all this shit they grab, but you'd think this is kind of some important stuff. It'd probably be a Cthulhu Mythos roll to identify it. And it'd be one of those things where just, you realize what this is. This is the powder of Ibn Ghazi. I think it's so freaking stupid that the powder of Ibn Ghazi is in here. Powder of Ibn Ghazi is the process to make it is detailed in the Necronomicon. So, okay, that's already kind of a hurdle, but alright, there's some powder here, so whatever. What is it used for? Well, the only real known thing that it's used for is in the Dunwich Horror, where, shit, I'm blanking on his name now. That's terrible. I feel so bad. The professor, the main professor, God, you know the guy I'm talking about. In the movie, he was cast in the lightning, you remember him. In the book, anyways, he makes the powder of Ibn Ghazi, which he then uses and he throws on the Dunwich Horror, and it makes it from invisible to visible. So it basically brings into this dimension what is in, other dimensions, or something like that. It makes visible the invisible. That's it. So, what would they use it for in this campaign? That's tricky. I'm sure they'd love to just sprinkle this all over the place and see what it does. And maybe it has other functions other than that. But the main thing that I know it would be used for, at least at this point, is Gavigan has the ability, he has this spell, I guess, that, well, it's kind of complicated. He can control this thing called the Thing in the Fog. And basically it's like this multi-tentacled creature that's invisible, basically. Until you shine a light on it, in which case it looks very faint, and you can just see kind of smoky tendrils. And so it kind of just goes around, it does his bidding. I don't know how he can control, I guess some magic. And it will just stick its tentacles in your nose and mouth until you suffocate and die. It's very deadly. And so they make sure you realize that this thing will probably kill whatever you throw it at. And so, be hesitant with it, I guess. And so I have no reason to use this based on, how events went and stuff like that. Because it's just basically like, hey, fuck you, I'm about to kill you. And I have a lot of ways to do that, so I don't need the Thing in the Fog. But I guess if, I don't think it mentions it anywhere here, but if they did throw some powder of Ibn Ghazi on the Thing in the Fog, they would see it. It would just be substantial. So yeah, it's not very exciting. Alright, so then the only other things that they didn't get to were the artwork. Which is basically, like, it's basically describing Shipley's work. Like, it's all stuff that's a part of the mythos, requires sanity loss. There's Byakhee, Chthonians, ghouls, Shantaks, sand dwellers, fire vampire. Like, it's all just shit. So, I assume he just bought it all from Shipley. Which is what I pretty much said in the campaign. Okay. Then the other things that they missed were in the crates. They looked at the outside of the crates. They got some information, but they did not get to see what was inside, because they had to get out of there. Like, I really wouldn't have, well, if I was going to screw them, I was going to screw them no matter what, so whatever. But, okay, so one of them, as mentioned, had a statue of the bloated woman, which is an avatar of Nyarlathotep that is really only present in China. And so it would cost some sanity to see it, and if you're near it, you have a better chance of contacting Nyarlathotep, which they really don't have any, like, again, it's supposed to be like this big deal that you try to contact Nyarlathotep. Meanwhile, Reginald just says the name Gulk and he appears, or he appears either way. So I kind of just blew that the hell out. The other one is the Blue Stone Cthulhu, which gives you magic points for 24 hours. If they realized its power and they kept it around with them, they could be useful, but they're likely to just be more afraid of it. So those weren't really any big things that they missed. Just kind of whatever. They got the important stuff, which was the books. And so the Gaharn fragments, the Book of Daisen, the Liber Vonis, all these contain spells, all these contain mythos information, all that stuff. As well as the Cults des Ghouls, which is not in the campaign at all. And the only reason that I put it in was because Ziggy, for some reason, has an obsession with it. I don't know why. I think we were playing Arkham Horror, and like the first unique item that he got, just a random unique item, was the Cults des Ghouls. And so he just started this obsession with it. And so his character has an obsession with it. And yes, I could completely call him out for metagaming, because why would his character have ever heard of the Cults des Ghouls? Especially since he's a Christian, it's been like banished by the church and stuff like that. And it's extremely rare. But you know what? Screw it. Just let him have the Cults des Ghouls. And it's not very exciting at all. Like, it's just a book talking about these, you know, old cults and stuff that did all these horrible things. It has nothing to do with actual ghouls, as in, you know, the ghouls of the Lovecraft universe. It's just a name. I don't think Cults des Ghouls was even made by Lovecraft, although I think there's some question about who actually made up that book. But anyways, it's a moot point. Okay, so then they went and the final thing was the thing with Tufik. And, boy, man, oh man, they bungled that one, didn't they? Because, okay, well, no, okay, Reginald getting captured. I can talk about that. I have so much to talk about on the board, too, that I'm going to really have to burn this long. Okay, so Reginald getting captured. Of course, Gavigan knew that he broke in. It was very odd. I mean, you have these people asking him all sorts of questions. They want his letters and all shit like that. And then suddenly his place gets broken into and his desk is rifled through and stuff's missing from his storage. Like, he knows. There's no other suspects. And so he got jumped by cultists. He could have somehow made his way out. Of course, if he had asked Gulk, Gulk may have intervened. Although, since I wasn't planning on having the cultists kill him anyways, Gulk, of course, knew that. So he may not have come. Reginald may have felt betrayed, but you never know. So anyways, he got knocked out. He could have definitely died in the encounter through some... Like, if he had jumped out the window, Gulk may have swooped in for that. But it's hard to say. Okay, so he was taken to Miser House. He was taken to Gavigan's estate out in Essex. And there are cells down there. I didn't make that up. There are jail cells down there. And he was chained up, and Gavigan finally got out there to pay him a visit. And so this is when I muted everything and did the private call with Ziggy. So what really happened was, I wanted to do the private call because I didn't want to reveal to the others that Gavigan Well, it was kind of twofold. I didn't want to reveal that Gavigan speaks to Nyarlathotep, and Nyarlathotep is kind of this entity, and all that. You know, Nyarlathotep is still just an entity out there that's kind of messing with them. I don't think the rest of the group really knows that he's the focus of everything, and this would have been a big tip off. And I also didn't want to know. I just like it's so much intrigue, like what is going on with Reginald, you know, and of course. They would have to prevent metagaming either way, but I think this is more interesting. So anyways, Gavigan's pretty much, he's just like, you know, I've spoken with Nyarlathotep, and he told me about you. And so he basically said that Nyarlathotep has plans for you, and I'm not sure what your purpose is as part of our plan, but he has told me not to kill you. But you could still be of use to me. And he did want his items back, but he told Reginald that he will let him and his group leave London safely. And he could easily prevent that. He will let the group leave safely if Reginald takes care of a rival of his, named Tufik al-Sayed. And so I still was able to work that in. I was able to get it in there. That rivalry, I really wanted to emphasize that. And so now the thing is, Reginald did not ask him, like, who this guy was or his importance or anything like that. He's just like, okay. So, yeah, Tufik al-Sayed, go get him. And so, as you heard, Reginald assumed that Tufik was an actual rival to the Brotherhood. Because Gavigan did not say he's like our high priest, you know, and we don't get along. Like, he thought they were on the outs or something. But no, Tufik is still one of the, like, the co-high priest of the Brotherhood. He just wants to be the sole leader. They both do. And so, if Reginald had asked more questions, he would have been better prepared, but he did not. It was very interesting. And I wasn't about to have Gavigan spill all the beans. And so then, that was pretty much it. Reginald Gavigan did have all the books and stuff that Reginald took, but Reginald, all he wanted was the Cults des Ghouls. He wanted to borrow it, and on a successful persuade, and it was great doing the private conversation and having Ziggy roll, and the group was just like, what the fuck, what is he rolling for? And so he did get to borrow the Cults des Ghouls, because it was like, whatever. And so then he was driven back to his Steinway Hall with a black bag over his head, and he was given the Cults des Ghouls, and that was it. Yeah. Because like I said, Gavigan fears Nyarlathotep, so he doesn't want to cross him. He's not going to kill the guy, but that doesn't mean he can't be useful. And if Tufik happens to kill him, well, that can hardly be Gavigan's fault. Okay, so they pay a visit to Tufik, and Reginald uses his incorrect information poorly, and so the gig was kind of up there. If they had gone upstairs, they would have found plenty of interesting stuff, the Mirror of Gaul being the main thing. That's pretty much out of the campaign at this point. Unless they happen to go back to a shop, they may uncover it. It's unlikely. They wouldn't have any idea how to use it anyways, but so that's fine. There is a scroll there that contains the spell Body Warping of Gorgoroth, which is a very random spell. It's in hieroglyphics. So again, you know, there's just a spell scroll there. That's loot. You know, that is basically the equivalent of loot in this game. So if they had gone upstairs, they would have gotten that. They would have gotten the 2 scepters, which are pretty powerful for boosting magic casting. And, but yeah, that's pretty much all done. Okay, and so yeah, Tufik dying. Golk didn't really have a problem with that. He probably would have had a problem killing Gavigan, because I would kind of have a little problem him killing Gavigan. Golk's not just going to kill off major people of the plan just willy-nilly. You know, he likes to spread chaos all over the place, and as much fun as Reginald and the group is, there are other places to have fun. He's not just going to kill everything off. So, death is too easy. But, Tufik was kind of getting annoying, so... Yeah, so that was pretty much that session, which was quite a bit of fun, but it's going to keep getting more fun. So I think we're going to take it over to the board now, which I redid completely to talk about what's going to happen. And, yeah, it's going to take a while as well, so let's get over there. Alright, so let's just get right into it. As you can see right away, London, moving on to Cairo. I, of course, am going to do what I can to try to get the groups to stay in London a little bit longer, but they are kind of wrapping things up there for the most part. So I'm pretty sure their next location is going to be Cairo, so we'll discuss that, about what's going to happen all over there, which is, of course, a very interesting place as well. Alright, so let's talk about Gavin. Gavin is still not entirely sure what to make of the group. Reginald did follow through. He did take care of Tufik. And they haven't really done anything to directly harm the great plan, which I know I still have yet to talk about. I will at one point. But yeah, so they're not really dangerous, but they don't seem like they should be kept around. But he is going to listen to Nyarlathotep at the very least. So he is going to let them leave London with all their books. Why? Well, because I want them to have books. I want them to cast spells and go insane and do dumb shit. So that's pretty much it. It may be illogical for Gavigan to allow it, but whatever. The Mask of Hayama, as we mentioned a couple sessions ago, it is at his estate in Essex. Nyarlathotep did tell him about it. He did have the Deep Ones delivered to him. And so depending on how events go, if they're about to leave London, he will have the mask delivered to Reginald, wherever he happens to be, probably at a hotel or whatever. And it'll just say, like, it'll just have the mask wrapped in a box, and it'll just say, I have a note that says, the Great One said that this belongs to you. And then, boom, the mask is back. And he will also telegram Shakti about them in Cairo. We'll talk about Shakti later, but Shakti is pretty much the head of all the Brotherhood of the Black Pharaoh. And so, Gavigan, again, he's kind of just middle of the road about these people, and so Nyarlathotep didn't say anything about not telegramming Shakti about them. So he's going to do it just to give him a heads up that these people are heading in there. They may not be enemies of the plan, but they don't appear to be completely friends either. So just a heads up. That's pretty much it. You know, it doesn't say kill them as soon as they arrive or anything, but okay. Alright, so Nyarlathotep, Golk. He's having a wonderful time with Reginald. He's really enjoying himself. Just watching this slow, horrible descent into evil and madness. That is exactly what he feeds on. It's amazing. And so Reginald is performing perfectly. I mean, when you've got this respectable gentleman pushing an old woman down the stairs to kill her, I mean, It's just amazing for him. That's not my personal view. I'm just saying for Nyarlathotep. All right, and Charlie CoC is still the only obstacle from having CoC actually present as part of the group again, which he does like. He does enjoy because he gets to actually fuck with them on a personal level. And so he is going to try to use Reginald to deal with Charlie. He doesn't want to just, say, screw you, Charlie, and melt him or something. Because, again, death is easy. It's boring. So it's much more fun to have Reginald deal with his dear old friend Charlie CoC. How is he going to go about doing that? We'll see. The easiest way, of course, is having Reginald make another deal for anything. Whatever he might need. And there's going to be things that Reginald might need in the coming days. And so, CoC may say, well, I'll give you this, but you're going to have to take care of your friend Charlie CoC for me. And he will also use the mask as part of any deals. And if Charlie goes away and CoC comes back into the picture, with Reginald as his good buddy, always vouching for him, he will, of course, do the mask all the time. In fact, CoC may try on the mask himself and be like, wow, that was cool! You should try it! Because none of these guys know about the mask, really. So, yeah, again, we get to be much more fun as this... this campaign should really just be called Try Not to Metagame. But, yeah. Alright, then the Miser House, Gavigan's estate in Essex. It is the site of some major rituals, and they did miss the major ritual in New York, in the Juju House. They kind of, boy oh boy did they bungle that one. And that was supposed to be like a really big, cool thing going on, like just, dozens and dozens of cultists just chanting and offering people to the Chakotay and all sorts of stuff like that. This is supposed to top that. These rituals are out on this big hill by a big hill by this big monument, and all these lights and just horrible sex rituals, and they summon servitors of outer gods, and it's just crazy. And so the group is likely going to miss it if they keep on the current track. Because Reginald wants to get out of London as soon as possible, because he doesn't want, well, for one, he's going to be wanted by the cops, and for two, he doesn't want to have to deal with the painting anymore. Remember, his deal with CoC with the painting was as long as he's in London, every 3 days he has to sacrifice somebody to it. And so, if he's not in London, that deal is off. So, he's going to want to get out. He doesn't want to do that anymore because the painting, I'm pretty sure he left at Steinway Hall, and he said he can never go back there. So if he doesn't get out of London in the next 3 days, one of his friends is going to horribly die. Most likely Charlie CoC. And so, on one hand, I could just say, well, alright, London's done, let's move on. Bigger and better things are waiting. But I could not say that either. I could give the group an anonymous tip. By anonymous, I mean from CoC. What would this tip contain? Well, it might say that the Brotherhood of the Black Pharaoh is meeting for a ritual night at this mansion out in Essex tomorrow night. That may pique their interest. It may not, because they know that's just going to have death and horribleness involved. So they may just skip it either way, but at least I give them a chance there. A chance to die. And of course, the Miser House does contain plenty more loot, I guess. I'm not really sure what it all contains now. Oh yeah, his huge treasure hoard. His fat ledger. It contains an unfinished letter written to Aubrey about saying that Jack Brady is still alive. So that's a big clue. And it contains plenty more books and scrolls and ingredients for spells. So if they get to that treasure hoard, there's going to be plenty of spell scrolls there. Yeah, plenty of them, in plenty of different languages. They could learn some spells from that. I mean, books are one thing where you have to like read the whole book to get to the spell. Scrolls is just like, boom, there's the spell. That's a big deal. So that would probably be the prime thing, assuming they like spells. But getting in there, sneaking in there while the rituals are going on, it's kind of dangerous. It's a big deal. We'll see what happens. Alright, but assuming, you know, things go as they go, they'll probably be attempting to leave London. The police are going to be looking for two men. One, Charlie Chalk, because Charlie Chalk did introduce himself to the owner of the Blue Pyramid Club, and he did also kill a bouncer there, so Abdul, of course, gave the police all the information he could. So they're looking for Charlie Chalk. They're also looking for Reginald Steinway, because, I mean, the people at his work know something's up. Like, there was like this break-in, and there's going to be like a bullet hole in the window. There's going to be like the chair out the window or something like that. Yeah, there's going to be blood, because he did not clean up the old lady's blood. There's going to be some shit. So the people at his thing, they're going to alert the police. You know, they also find a dead body nearby. He like literally just dragged it into the street. I'm not making it up. So there's going to be a hunt for Reginald Steinway, at least for questioning, at the very least. And so customs, of course, anytime, you know, somebody wants to leave the country, there's going to be people there asking questions. And they, of course, are going to be notified about this Charlie Chalk and Reginald Steinway, both who are not well, Charlie's a foreigner. Reginald has gone back and forth, so he's been through customs plenty of times. So it's definitely likely they could be trying to flee the country. So, yeah, if either one of them go to customs with their real passports, they're going to get red flagged immediately. How they get out of that, that's up to them. There are alternate ways out of London if they want to go through illegal channels. They may attempt some daring evasion of customs at Southampton so they can use Reginald's boat. Or Reginald may ask Oak for help. You never know. There's also, you know, they could try to get forged passports or something like that. There are a few ways out for that, but we'll see. You know, we shall see. Alright, and so that brings us to Cairo. They won't arrive directly in Cairo, of course. They will arrive in Port Said. Yes, Port Said. And they'll then take a train. It's like a 5-hour train or something like that to Cairo. And this is going to be the first really foreign place that they go to. You know, New York and London are pretty damn similar. Not entirely, but for the most part. This is way out there. You know, this place, the major thing here is that the majority of the country is going to speak Arabic. Which, as of right now, none of the players speak. So that's a big deal. I imagine the first new investigator coming in is going to speak very fluent Arabic, but that's fine. And so right now they're going to need a translator. And we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Arabic is a major language. The up and up, you know, anybody it's still under British rule. And so there's going to be plenty of Brits in the upper class around there. They'll speak English, but the majority of the people they speak to are going to speak Arabic. The major religion is Islamic, which isn't going to play a huge part, but they are potentially going to pay some visits to some mosques, for whatever reason. And if they don't follow the kind of traditions there, you know, if they're very noisy or what have you, there could be trouble. And also, since it's under British rule, they're not real likely, you know, to be kind to British people, American people, basically white people. And by they, I mean natives, locals. And so that could play into it. We'll see how much I play into that. but it's something to keep in mind. Okay. The Brotherhood of the Black Pharaoh is, of course, present in Cairo. That is where it's centered. It is the major hub for them. The group does not have Gavigan's protection here. So, it's probably where I can potentially go all out if they get into the wrong side of the Brotherhood. Yeah, that's basically that. And the chief priest of pretty much all the Brotherhood is a guy by the name of Omar Shakti. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Okay, so assuming they're smart, which I hope they are, they'll need a guide to get around Cairo and an interpreter and stuff like that. One of the men is named Hakim. He's 20 years old. He's, if you ever saw the movie Taken, if you remember the guy that the girls meet when they arrive in France or whatever it was, he's kind of like that. He's there to just be very, charming. He'll flirt with the females. He'll be very cool. But then he just kind of leads the group down a dark alley and has his boys jump him. That's pretty much it. That's all he's in the campaign for. Not much else to it. The real guide that they want is a kid by the name of Mahmoud. He's 11 years old, he's an orphan, he's a beggar, he's thinking about prostituting himself because he just wants to get some money to eat. And so, all I have written here is short round. Because that basically summed up everything I wanted to say. Short round, from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's who he is. I feel like, I'm pretty sure this was written before the movie came out. I'm almost certain, but he's short round. Yeah, he's just this little orphan kid that's going to be real friendly to the investigators, and he'll know the city, and he's very quick-witted, and he'll say funny things, and yeah. And any money that they give him, he'll immediately rush off to buy as much food as he can, and yeah. He'll be very useful to the group, though. He speaks fluent Arabic, and he's pretty good with his English, and he can get in and out of small places. He does, I'm pretty sure he has skills in lockpicking. Or, maybe he can get in other ways. I don't know. But he is very useful. He's the guy that they want, I'm pretty sure. He's short round. There's nothing else I need to say. Okay, he doesn't know lockpick. He actually doesn't speak that great of English. I guess he's 11. It's passable. And so, the horrible thing is, Mahmoud is, of course, then a target. As soon as he joins up with the investigators, he is a target for any horribleness. And so, Nyarlathotep does not give a shit about tormenting a child or killing him or whatever, so I can just picture it now, Reginald having to make a deal, and Gulp tells him that he has to, put the mask on Mahmoud or something like that. It's just fucking terrible. And I feel bad, but I kind of don't. Okay, so yeah, that's the guy they want. They'll probably get Hakim first, and then Mahmoud will witness this or something like that, and, we'll see what happens. But, of course, I want Hakim to be there so they can get jumped. Because when they go through customs in Port Said, they're most likely going to get their firearms confiscated. We'll see what happens. Again, if they come in through some illegal means, and they evade customs in both, London and Port Said, they may get to keep their shit. But, of course, whenever you get to a new place, you want to strip them of all their firearms, just because it makes things more interesting, but we'll see. Okay, so the first man that they're going to try to speak to, I imagine, and their main lead, really the only lead they have in Cairo for the most part, is Faraz Najir. Faraz Najir, if you remember, was listed in a letter that Jonah gave them. It was written to Mr. Carlyle, and it mentioned knowledge of the land and stuff like that. And so it said to meet him in his shop in the Street of Jackals in the Old Quarter. Finding this street and finding this shop is very difficult. By themselves, if they just want to try and find it on their own, they'll need at least a day of wandering around, perhaps more. Mahmoud could lead them there in about half an hour. So, yeah. Like, Cairo apparently has, the city has nearly doubled in population in the last 20 years. So it's growing big, there's no maps, and it's just kind of a weave of these little small streets and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be tough to find. But assuming they do find it, they find that his shop burned down. And they talk to natives and stuff like that. They'll get a little glimpse of a story, and they may also get a hint that he has a new shop in a different street. So if they get there and they talk to him again, they find out that he's kind of horribly scarred. He's like Two-Face now, basically. Half his face is just horribly scarred. And he's very, very paranoid of the Brotherhood, because the Brotherhood did this. Because he knew some information about the Carlisle expedition, and the Brotherhood didn't really care for him. Yeah. But he's still alive. Oh, here's a picture if you want to see him. See? See him? See him? You see him? Okay. And so it's going to be tricky for them to actually speak to him and get some information about him. They have to bribe him. That's pretty much the only way. If they really threaten him, I might let him talk, because he's probably going to die either way, he figures. But bribing is definitely the best way to get him to talk. And again, it's a new currency. So if they do get him to talk, he'll say that he stole some artifact. Well, he won't. He says that he has some artifacts that he sold to Carlisle's agent. And where he got them, he probably won't reveal. He did steal them from Omar Shakti, but he probably won't mention that. And he'll also give them some information about the Clive expedition, as well as the Mosque of Ibn Tulun, which we'll talk about later. And the name of Carlisle's agent is Warren Bessart, or Bessart. We'll go with Bessart. And so again, they'll want to try and find this guy. And let's see, it shouldn't be too difficult. Yeah, they can just kind of ask around, I guess. And so they find him, and he's pretty much completely insane. I think he has a sanity of 5, which is not completely insane, of course. Yeah, he's got a sanity of 5 right now. He's pretty much on the edge. They'll be able to get a statement out of him, but yeah, he's pretty smoked up on hashish, and he's not great. But he is going to give a lengthy statement, and I mean lengthy. I mean, I have to read this thing to them. You see that whole box? That's his statement. And so, pretty much, I'm just going to be like, don't interrupt, and I'm just going to read this thing. And this gives a lot of information about the Carlisle expedition and what they did in Egypt and stuff like that. It's very, very useful if they get this statement. This is like a major clue in Egypt. And this is also going to lead to a couple of people by the name of Niti and Unba, which I actually am not even going to talk about because I had too much other shit to talk about. Okay, the Cairo Bulletin is basically the only English language weekly newspaper in Cairo. And so I'm not sure what connection I'm going to get for them to get to this. If they don't think about it themselves, maybe If they speak to Jonah at some point in Cairo, he might say, I think I know a guy that runs a paper out there. It might be something like that. It's owned by a guy named Nigel Wasif. He knows quite a bit about what's been going on, and also back issues of the Cairo Bulletin talk plenty about the expedition's time in Egypt. And so there's plenty more information there. The Bulletin itself, as well as Nigel, will lead the group to Shakti and Dr. Ali Kafur at the British Museum, as well as the Clive expedition. So that's useful. Omar Shakti. All right. Omar Shakti lives on a plantation a few miles north of Cairo. He's a very genial, respectable gentleman. He's kind of like Gavigan in that respect, but he's not as involved as Gavigan is as far as publicly. And he's pretty much the most powerful adversary in the campaign. Other than, of course, Nyarlathotep, who I don't consider an adversary. So yeah, Omar Shakti knows pretty much every spell. Like, everything. Like spells. All spells in the rulebook's greater and lesser grimoires, plus others as the keeper wishes. He knows fucking every spell. He's very difficult to kill. Because there are spells that just... Yeah, I mean, he's still just a human, basically. He's got 18 health. He's got a fucking 33 power. I mean, that should sum it up right there. He's got a 25 constitution, but he's got 18 health, so, a couple guns just would take care of him. But there are spells that he could cast, especially if he has time to prepare, of course. If he has time to prepare, he can prepare plenty of spells that will, basically let him dominate any combat encounter. But if they just get into combat normally, he could wreck their shit very quickly. There's some rough spells. Very deadly. So they don't really want to get into a fight with him. They'll probably, at least a couple of them will die. And even if Omar does die, Nyarli will likely resurrect him. Because Omar has been around for a long time, Nyarlathotep likes the dude, and so he keeps him around. That's pretty much it. He, at his place on the plantation, there isn't really much there. Shakti himself will not give them much information, and the only really thing in his place is a logbook with some shipments listed to Hallfong Imports and Randolph Shipping Company, so names they already have. And there's also a letter, or an unsigned receipt. Where was that? Oh, yeah. There's a little receipt here that says, "My dear Omar, the scarab is magnificent. If the matching pieces could be found, I would be most appreciative. A.P." Now, assuming our investigators aren't dumb, they'll probably connect that as Aubrey Penhew, which is a huge clue. And so yeah, that's pretty much it. There's some clues there, but mostly it's just kind of a trap. As all the workers on the plantation are cultists. Alright, the Egyptian Museum. The occult section of the museum is run by Dr. Ali Kafur. There is a copy of the Necronomicon there, which is a big deal, because this is the first time that they're actually kind of meant to go to the museum rather than the British Museum. Kafur himself is knowledgeable. He knows some spells even. He even cast like a magical shield on the occult section or something, like the vault or something, to protect it. So he knows some spells, he knows some information. He's got information about the Black Pharaoh and Nitocris, which I know I haven't really talked about. I don't really have time or room. But literally it's like 2 pages of just information that he can give. So they definitely want to talk to this guy, and they want to be nice to him. There's a lot of information about what's going to happen in Egypt there. And the Black Cat. This is almost a side investigation, really. It doesn't have an incredible amount to do with anything else that's going on, but it's funny. Okay, the Clive expedition, which again I didn't have room to really detail because I don't think they'll get to that in the next session. Clive expedition is going on right now in. They've been excavated at Memphis, so they're at Memphis, not at Cairo. And so this is, of course, being funded by Penhew Foundation. And one of the guys that worked on the Clive expedition was fired for incompetence and alcoholism. His name is Jean-Willem van Hoevelen. Call me Jean. And this guy, basically, as the campaign, right, it details some information about him. It's John Candy. Okay, that's who I'm writing it as. That's who I am going to role play it as. It's John Candy, basically in like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Just picture that. That's who this guy is. He's kind of lovable, but he's very incompetent, and he also has a drinking problem, which is just what it is. And he doesn't know a great deal of information. It's really not worth to find this guy at all, but they probably will. And so he's, before he was fired, or I think after, or something, around that time, he stole something from the pyramid. Or, actually, no. I have to, yeah. He says that he discovered the scrolls in a lost temple beneath the streets of Cairo itself. So yeah, there's this temple underneath Cairo. Very hidden away. It's a temple of Bast, which is basically the cat god, because Lovecraft loved cats because everybody loves cats. And so the cat god is named Bast, she's a beautiful woman, and blah, blah, blah. And so he stole some sacred rites from this temple, because he's just John Candy. And so now Bast wants the scrolls back. And so he suffers from a plague of cats. Since he found the scrolls, Van Hoevelen has been the victim of a strange curse. He's been constantly watched and followed by cats of all shapes and sizes. No matter where he goes, the cats are there. And in the past couple of days, he has noticed another follower, a beautiful young Arab woman. This is Neris, the priestess of Bast. He has not yet associated the theft of the scrolls with the presence of the cats. Perhaps the investigators will help him with this easy deduction. The cats seek to avenge his theft from the Temple of Bast. Neris seeks the return of the scrolls. So basically, like, as soon as they meet this guy, they're going to notice that cats are hanging around him. And as the days go by, there's going to be more and more cats. And eventually they're going to start to, like, scratch at him and stuff and lash out. And it's going to get kind of more and more ridiculous. And this woman is going to show up. This gorgeous, gorgeous, like, almost inhumanly gorgeous Arab woman. She's going to show up. And, like, right in front of the investigators, she's going to just yell out at him to, return what he stole. And then if he still doesn't do it, a couple nights after she appears, she's going to come back as a Black Panther. She can take the form of a Black Panther. And she's going to, like, growl at them from a rooftop or something like that. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. Until hopefully he will refuse, because this is all he has in life, is these scrolls. He needs to translate them. This is his key to fortune and fame. And so they'll probably murder him or something just to get the scrolls back, because the cats will start transferring over to the group as well if they don't convince him to do it. And so if they eventually convince him to lead them back to the temple, they'll find this small temple that's just filled with cats. And if any of the cats are attacked, I don't know why they would do this, but it has to detail it just in case. If any of the cats are attacked, it's basically like, whole man. Like, if you ever saw Cabin in the Woods, when they release all the shit and the elevator doors open up and the group, the SWAT soldiers or whatever, just get fucking mauled, picture that, but with cats. Like big cat, like lions. Lions are cats, alright? So they can use lions. It's pretty terrible. Like even like bigger than lions. Like, just supercharged lions. Like, oh my god. Now, the actual rites themselves are kind of useful. They do contain plenty of spells. And he's going to try to work on a translation of it. But it's in hieroglyphics, so maybe one of the group could help him with it. We'll see. But yeah, they probably, once they discover that he's got this, they probably want to convince him to do it, because it's just going to get worse and worse. If Neris actually dies, then Bast herself gets involved. And she will summon every cat in the city to just fucking own you. Oh, John Candy, you're right. So yeah, that's a completely side story. It has nothing to do with anything. He does kind of have some information, but not a great amount. Alright, and that's pretty much all I could get in here about Cairo so far. They're not going to get to... They might not even get to Cairo in the next session, but I wanted to give a quick primer about what's going on there. That is, of course, not the big part of it yet, but the final ritual of Cairo is going to be one they don't want to miss. It's a big deal. But yeah, so what I predict happening is Reginald's going to want to leave London ASAP. Just get out of there. He doesn't want to deal with the painting because he's not with him anymore. Of course, Gulk will easily transport it to his hotel room if he wants. Maximilian is still resting. He's at, I think, 6 health right now. Maybe he's at 4. He might be at 4 health, actually. So yeah, he's in rough shape. You know, if as a player, I would just be like, man, I want to stick around. Like, why would I just want to throw myself at death? We ain't going nowhere. Let's just chill. Charlie is probably going to receive the anonymous tip from Golk. I think I'm pretty set on that. I think that'll be fun. We'll see what they do with it. There may be a conflict then between Charlie and the group and Reginald because he wants to get out of town as soon as possible. They may want to still head up on this lead or let Maximilian rest. Then Golk may suggest to Reginald to, you know, take care of Charlie so we can get out of London then. The ritual itself is dangerous and insanity-inducing, so they probably won't take the bait, but you never know. I'll leave it as an option. And it's going to be difficult for them to leave London safely, so they are going to have to think about that. I assume Reginald is going to think about that. If not, Golk may be like, you know, it's going to be tough to get you out of London, but I can manage it. Yeah, so we'll see. I am looking forward to Cairo because it is a foreign place, and we start to get to really kind of the more supernatural stuff in there, and there's a lot of characters. Like, this is not even half the characters in Cairo, so there's a lot of people in there they can interact with. They got to decide who to trust, who to not trust, who can help them, who can hurt them, all sorts of stuff. It's gonna be alright. So yeah, like I said. It's going to be 2 weeks then before the next session, so hopefully we go, you know, every session we don't forget too much that's happened. I at least have my board that I can keep glancing at, but I'm going to have to like be posting a recap for the other guys, just to keep them kind of like, what are we doing? What happened? Oh, that's right, Reginald's evil. Oh, yeah. But, yeah, it's a lot of fun, so. Alright, so my name is Mang. This has been Secrets of Roll Mangging for our Call of Cthulhu campaign, and I'll see you fine folks in a couple weeks.